Hello everyone, my name is Kimberly, and today I'm going to be discussing Fyodor Dostoevsky's novel, Crime and Punishment. If you haven't read this novel, I'd just like to provide a warning. I'm going to be revealing key plot points and themes, so you may not want to continue watching this video. Dostoevsky is an author well known for his novella, Notes from the Underground, and his 4 long novels, from which Crime and Punishment is the most famous. He's described by many as a great psychological novelist, as many of the common themes in his work explore psychological enlightenment and its effects on the characters, such as self-destruction and tyrannical domination. It can even be noted that his personal experiences, such as his mock execution and his imprisonment in Siberia, inspired that of Crime and Punishment's protagonist Raskolnikov. So Dostoevsky is also an author who likes to portray his individuals in his novels as intellectuals with which he explores their decline into insanity, self-destruction, and murder. He comments largely and almost satirizes a lot of the ideas floating around 1860s Russia at the time, which includes nihilism and utilitarianism, which I'll explain in further detail later on in the video. And Dostoevsky also explores with unique literary forms of representation, such as writing from the mind of the murderer himself. So these ideas and common themes bring us to Crime and Punishment and the story of the protagonist, Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov is a former student living in St. Petersburg, Russia, who throughout the beginning of the novel murders an old pawnbroker named Ilyona Ivanovna and her sister Lizaveta. He is then suspected by the chief investigator for the murder, Porfiry Petrovich, who considers him guilty but doesn't really have any evidence. Therefore, he relies mostly on psychological games and interrogations. And so this is where a large question arises early into Dostoevsky's novel. What makes a young intellectual like Raskolnikov, a former student, murder 2 women? Was it motivated by greed, anger? Whatever this motivation may be, was it justified, or did it ultimately fail him? In the formation of Raskolnikov's character is where Dostoevsky branches away from common representations by choosing a character fueled by atypical ideas. Raskolnikov is influenced by the overindulgence of theories, typically that of Russian nihilism and utilitarianism. Nihilism is a secular view which replaces the religious ideas of humans with a more scientific ideal, viewing them as divided within this lawful utopia. This then ties into utilitarianism, or the belief that one's actions should be judged on whether or not they benefit the majority. Raskolnikov takes this idea and separates people into ordinary and extraordinary beings, and justifies this separation as lawful and civil. He describes himself as one of these extraordinary beings who is fully entitled to commit all sorts of crimes and excesses to whom the law supposedly does not apply. However, Dostoevsky also forms Raskolnikov's character through the use of dualities. Supported by his theories, Raskolnikov is obviously a character with a lust for greatness. His chosen example for the extraordinary being is Napoleon, one who justifiably steps over everyday boundaries without punishment. However, Raskolnikov is also a follower of Russian Orthodox Christianity and has a constant need for forgiveness or the absolving of his sins. Conversations about the murder throw him into a delirium where he even faints in the police station. He gives his rent money to a mother and her daughter whose father just died in a horrific accident, and he tries to stop his sister from marrying an awful man just to support him financially. Since he's such a follower of these nihilistic and utilitarian ideals, are these actions supported by his arrogance, or are they based off the inability of him to neglect his morality? These incompatible beliefs are what divide Raskolnikov internally and ultimately fail him. He's unable to shake his feelings of guilt and delirium, therefore succumbing to his morality. His confession at the end of the novel proves that he's unable to hold himself above the law and act as a true nihilist. While Raskolnikov's utilitarian motivations are not as heavily discredited, Dostoevsky does hold an obvious counter-argument against these theories by demonstrating the guilt and delirium which Raskolnikov goes through. It can be noted that Dostoevsky does feel as though one should consider the benefit of the majority when making decisions. However, it should not be used as a justification for breaking moral codes. This inability for Raskolnikov to hold himself above ethical standards is described by one critic as the dead weight of instinct. Raskolnikov's inability to handle evil's existence is the ultimate cause of his nihilistic behaviors, but also serves as proof of his morality. If he cared nothing about poverty and injustice, then he would have no real reason to practice utilitarianism. Raskolnikov chose morality when he decided that killing the pawnbroker would benefit the greater good. Therefore, his theories are weakened and overpowered by his ethical standards. Not only does the contradiction of Raskolnikov's theories lead to his entrapment, but also the mere existence of them. Raskolnikov spends his time fantasizing about what it would be like to commit crimes based on his concepts. He rests in a psychological state completely numb to human conditions and is motivated most strongly about whether or not his theories hold true. Dostoevsky connects the overindulgence of theories to ignorance in the several dreams with which Raskolnikov has. The best example of this is in the epilogue, a part of the novel which one critic says follows logically but not artistically. I disagree with this, however, because Dostoevsky chooses the epilogue to communicate most thoroughly the extent to which Raskolnikov realizes his failures. In the epilogue, Raskolnikov has a dream of an apocalyptic world where no one can distinguish between what is good and what is evil. By doing this, Dostoevsky is communicating to the reader what would happen if the world, just like his protagonist, chose to fabricate their own moral code. He suggests that their theories and their illegitimacy would cause destruction. We also know that Raskolnikov's theories are published in an article which arouses the suspicions of Porfiry, serving as the closest thing to evidence which he has to use against him. In his interrogations, Porfiry not only is interrogating Raskolnikov to confess, but he's also acting with empathy towards the morality which he believes Raskolnikov still has within him. These psychological battles which ensue between Porfiry and Raskolnikov, and even within Raskolnikov himself, serve as the main theme for Crime and Punishment. Dostoevsky chooses the majority of the novel not to focus on the crime, but rather the punishment which Raskolnikov goes through mentally. Even the actual punishment which Raskolnikov receives, his incarceration in Siberia, is limited to the last couple of pages. This goes back to Dostoevsky's unique representation and his choice to focus on the murderer himself. Lastly, before I go, I'd like to suggest that if you like the themes and moral topics that Dostoevsky addresses in Crime and Punishment, you should also check out his other novel, The Possessed. It also takes on a psychological analysis of its protagonist, who uses nihilism to excuse his evil deeds. And as the title presumes, he's supposedly possessed by these theories. And if you also like how his novels parallel the experiences of Dostoevsky himself, you can also check out House of the Dead and Notes from the Underground, which can be linked to his experiences in labor camps and military services. And that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment as much as I did, and thank you for watching.